They're watching you right now. Not with cameras. Not with satellites. But with something far more dangerous. The Fallen One has had his eyes fixed on you from the moment you started to wake up. Every thought that sparks in your mind, every flicker of resistance in your spirit, every whisper of rebellion against the system, he notices. And here's the terrifying part: you've been marked, not because you're weak, but because you're strong enough to break free. Let that sink in. You're not being targeted randomly. You're not just another face in the crowd. The fact that you've even found this message is proof that you're already on his radar. The Fallen One doesn't waste his time with those who are lost in distraction. He studies the chosen, the seekers, the ones whose light threatens to expose the shadows he built. Pause for a moment. Look around you. Do you really believe your struggles, your battles, your sleepless nights are just coincidence? That sudden storm of attacks, the betrayal, the confusion, the endless setbacks, they weren't random. They were designed. A calculated strike against your spirit. Because the moment you step into who you truly are, his entire empire of deception begins to crumble. This is why you've always felt different. This is why people have misunderstood you, rejected you, even feared you. They weren't seeing you, they were reacting to the pressure the Fallen One placed on your path. He uses people like pawns, bending their emotions, twisting their minds, turning them against you so that you feel isolated. He knows if you ever stop doubting yourself, if you ever rise with clarity, you'll become unstoppable. Let me tell you something most people are too afraid to admit: you are in a war you cannot see. A silent battlefield, where weapons are not bullets or blades, but thoughts, fears, temptations, and illusions. The Fallen One monitors not just what you do but how you feel. When you're tired, he strikes harder. When you're hopeful, he plants doubts. When you begin to heal, he sends reminders of your pain. He has been perfecting this system for centuries. And yet, here you are, still standing, still searching, still refusing to give up. Doesn't that tell you something about who you are? Ask yourself, why do the attacks never stop? Why is it that every time you're about to rise, something tries to drag you down? Could it be because you carry something the darkness fears? That your very existence threatens everything he has built? Think about this. If you were truly powerless, would the Fallen One waste his time on you? Would he orchestrate betrayals, heartbreaks, disappointments, and endless distractions if you were not destined to rise? No. He monitors you because your awakening is his greatest threat. And here's where it gets deeper. He doesn't just monitor your actions, he manipulates the world around you. Ever notice how the wrong people show up at the right time to pull you off course? How temptations appear stronger when you're weakest? How your mind spirals with self-doubt just when you need clarity most? That's not random, that's surveillance. That's a spiritual algorithm designed to keep you looping, stuck in cycles, never breaking free. But here's what the Fallen One fears most: awareness. The moment you recognize his hand in your struggles, the illusion starts to crack. You stop blaming yourself, and you begin to see the larger game being played. That's why this message found you, because you were meant to wake up. Now let me ask you, what would change in your life if you truly believed that you were being monitored? That every move you make, every thought you entertain, is part of a much bigger war? Would you still waste time doubting yourself? Would you still stay silent when your soul screams to rise? Or would you sharpen your spirit and prepare to fight back? Here's a truth that will either shake you or set you free: the Fallen One doesn't fear your mistakes, your failures, or your sins. He fears your alignment. Because the moment you align with your true source, the monitoring system fails. His grip loosens. His power collapses. And he knows it. That's why he works overtime to keep you distracted, guilty, ashamed, and exhausted. Because a weary soul is easier to control than a focused one. But tonight, in this moment, something is shifting. You can feel it. That's why you're still listening. Because your spirit knows this isn't just another video, another voice, another story. This is confirmation of what you've already felt deep inside. You are being watched, not because you are weak, but because you are chosen. And if you are chosen, then you carry authority. Authority to resist, authority to break chains, authority to rise. The fallen one may monitor you, but he cannot define you. He may attack you, but he cannot destroy what was divinely placed within you. He knows his time is short. He knows his grip is slipping. That's why the battle around you has been so intense. Don't ignore this. Your life has not been ordinary for a reason. You have endured storms that should have broken you, trials that should have silenced you, pain that should have buried you. And yet you rise. Every time. Bruised but breathing. Scarred but stronger. And do you know what that tells me? That no amount of monitoring can erase what was written for you. The question is, will you keep playing small? Will you keep shrinking yourself to fit into the world the fallen one built? Or will you step into the power he fears most? Because the moment you stop running from who you are, you'll realize something he doesn't want you to know. He's been afraid of you all along. Now I'll take you deeper. Because if you think the monitoring is only about watching you, you're mistaken. It goes further than that. He has planted watchers in your life, people who smile in your face but secretly hope you fail, people who pretend to support you while feeding off your struggles. Yes, some of the people around you are being used without even realizing it. They're puppets in his game, pawns in his plan. But here's the twist: their betrayal is actually your training. Their rejection is your initiation. Their doubts are the very fuel that will launch you higher. And the fallen one doesn't even realize that every attempt to break you is only making you more unbreakable. And now, let me warn you, the monitoring is about to intensify. Because you've heard this message. Because you're beginning to see. Because your awareness is rising. He knows you're waking up. He knows you're listening. And that means his attacks will grow sharper. But don't be afraid. The very fact that the storm intensifies is proof that the dawn is near. So here's my challenge to you right now: don't just listen. Rise. Decide. Break the silence in your spirit. Because what happens next will either be your downfall or your breakthrough. And if you're ready, keep watching, because in the next moment, I'm going to reveal the hidden methods he uses to manipulate your path, and why he has been so obsessed with stopping you before you discover the truth of who you are. The fallen one's greatest trick isn't the chaos he creates, it's the subtlety of how he does it. He doesn't come to you with horns, fire, and obvious destruction. No, he comes quietly, slipping into your thoughts, disguising his whispers as your own voice. He makes you believe the lies are yours so that you own them, feed them, and let them grow. That's how he wins, not by overpowering you, but by convincing you to surrender without even knowing you did. Think back. How many times have you heard a thought in your mind that said, "You're not good enough. You'll never make it. They don't care about you"? Did those words feel like they came from outside? No. They sounded like your own inner dialogue. That's the trick. That's the monitoring. He watches what triggers you, and then he plants the right thought at the right moment, and you believe it because it echoes your deepest wounds. But here's the most dangerous part: he studies your patterns. He knows your cycles better than you do. He knows when you're most vulnerable. He knows what memories cut the deepest. He knows the faces, the places, the feelings that still haunt you. And like a master chess player, he positions them in your path to pull you back into old traps. Ever notice how just when you're ready to move forward, someone from your past shows up? Just when you're healing, the same kind of person who once broke you reappears, wearing a different face but carrying the same spirit? That's not chance. That's strategy. The fallen one recycles your wounds. He keeps bringing them back because he knows that if you stay wounded, you'll never rise fully. And here's what's even more unsettling: he uses silence too. He knows how much you crave affirmation, so he withholds it. He knows how much you want to be seen, so he blinds others to your worth. He knows how much you long for love, so he twists relationships into weapons. He uses absence as much as presence, emptiness as much as excess. That's why some of your darkest battles aren't with people but with silence itself: unanswered prayers, unanswered calls, unanswered longings. Let me ask you, how many times have you been on the edge of giving up, and then something small, a text, a memory, a sudden wave of exhaustion, tipped you over? That wasn't random. That was timing. Precision. The fallen one monitored your breaking point and chose the exact moment to push. But here's the secret he never wants you to realize. Every time he attacks, he exposes his fear. If he has to send distractions, it's because your focus is dangerous. If he has to stir betrayal, it's because your loyalty is powerful. If he has to amplify your doubts, it's because your faith shakes his foundations. You've been misinterpreting the attacks as punishment, when in reality they are evidence of your purpose. Now imagine this. What if you stopped seeing the attacks as setbacks and started seeing them as signs? Signs that you are closer than you think. Signs that your breakthrough is near. Signs that you are already walking the path that terrifies him most. Wouldn't that change how you face your battles? Let me give you a warning wrapped in truth. The fallen one is a master of imitation. He mimics light to pull you deeper into darkness. He sends opportunities that look like blessings but are traps. He places people in your life who shine at first but drain you slowly. He crafts doors that seem wide open but lead to nowhere. That's why discernment is your weapon. Not every open path is your path. Not every smile is safe. Not every offer is divine. Ask yourself, how many times have you taken what looked good, only to realize later it cost you more than it gave? That's the counterfeit. That's the fallen monitoring system working against you. He wants you chasing illusions so you never touch what's real. But listen closely, the real battle isn't outside of you. It's within. The fallen one monitors your agreement. He cannot move without your consent. That's why he works so hard to convince you to say yes to things that destroy you. He doesn't need to force you, he just needs you to agree. Agreement with fear. Agreement with shame. Agreement with the belief that you are less than you are. Every yes you give to those lies becomes a chain around your spirit. Yet here's the light breaking through. You can revoke your agreement. You can withdraw your consent. The moment you say, "No more," the chains start to weaken. Because the fallen one has no real authority over you. His entire strategy relies on deception. And deception only works when it goes unnoticed. Now let me pull you deeper. The monitoring doesn't stop with your thoughts. It extends into your environment. Music, screens, conversations, even the atmosphere of certain places. They carry frequencies that either strengthen or weaken you. Ever walk into a room and feel your energy drop instantly? That's not imagination. That's atmosphere. The fallen one creates environments that drain you so that you never have the strength to build. And if he can't reach you directly, he'll use the very people around you as carriers. Think about it. How many times have you left a conversation feeling smaller than when it started? How many times has someone's words echoed in your mind like poison long after they walked away? That's not just them. That's influence. That's how monitoring works. He studies who gets to you most, and then he channels his message through them. But here's the twist. The same monitoring that was meant to break you is awakening your discernment. The more you see his patterns, the less they work. What used to crush you now exposes him. What used to silence you now makes you sharper. And that's what he fears most. Not that you'll be perfect, but that you'll be aware. Because awareness is the beginning of freedom. So let me put this before you. Are you willing to see? Are you willing to stop excusing the patterns, stop calling them bad luck, and start recognizing the design behind them? Because once you see, you cannot unsee. And once you cannot unsee, you are no longer easily deceived. But don't think for a moment that awareness alone will make the fallen one retreat. No, when you see him, he fights harder. He throws bigger distractions, louder noise, sharper pain. Because if he can't keep you blind, he'll try to keep you busy. He'll try to exhaust you so you don't have the strength to act on what you know. And that's where we are right now. You are standing in the tension between awareness and action. You know you're monitored. You know the patterns. You've seen the manipulation. But the question is, what will you do with it? Will you stay frozen, analyzing the game forever? Or will you begin to move, to resist, to break the cycle piece by piece? Because if you dare to act, if you dare to rise, the monitoring will fail. The system will glitch. The fallen one will realize too late that the very pressure he used to destroy you has only made you unstoppable. So here's the next layer I need to reveal to you. The reason he's so obsessed with stopping you is not just about you. It's about what's connected to you. Your destiny, your influence, the lives you're meant to touch, the light you're meant to ignite. If he can stop you, he stops everything attached to you. That's why the battle feels bigger than your own life, because it is. And in the next part, I'm going to uncover the real reason you were targeted from the beginning, the truth about your calling, and why the fallen one knew long before you did that you were chosen to rise. From the very beginning, the fallen one knew something about you that you didn't know about yourself. He recognized your light before you ever discovered it. He saw your potential before you had the courage to believe in it. And because of that, he marked you. He decided that if he couldn't destroy the source that created you, he would try to destroy the vessel, you. You've probably asked yourself countless times, why me? Why does it always feel like I carry heavier battles than others? And here's the answer. Because you were never ordinary. You were born with an imprint, a spark, a seed of destiny that terrified the darkness. Long before you were even aware, the fallen one saw it. He knew that if that seed ever took root, it would birth something unstoppable. That's why the attacks began so early. Think back to your childhood. The loneliness. The rejection. The sense that you didn't belong. Do you really believe those things just happened? No, they were arranged. The fallen one studied your bloodline, your weaknesses, your surroundings, and he wove traps around your earliest years. He wanted to cripple you before you could stand, silence you before you could speak, and break you before you could discover who you were meant to become. But here's where the story shifts. Every strike he used against you became proof of your calling. The deeper the wound, the greater the evidence. The heavier the battle, the higher the assignment. And though he watched and waited for you to fall, you didn't. You may have stumbled, but you didn't stay down. You may have been broken, but you kept breathing. And that persistence is what he cannot stand. Ask yourself this: why do others seem to coast through life, while your path feels like fire? It's because their destiny does not threaten the darkness the way yours does. You've been placed in the fire to be refined, not destroyed. And though the fallen one monitors you to catch you slipping, what he doesn't realize is that every flame he sends only sharpens your spirit. But here's something chilling. He knew you were chosen before you did. He has studied chosen ones for centuries. He knows the signs, the isolation, the dreams that don't fit in, the inner restlessness that refuses to be silenced. He recognized the mark on you even when you thought you were lost. And he said, I must stop this one before they rise. Yet here you are, listening to these words, proof that his monitoring hasn't succeeded. Proof that you've outlasted every attempt to erase you. Proof that no matter how many times he tried to bury you, the seed inside you kept growing in silence. Now let me drop this on you. The reason you've been targeted isn't just about survival. It's about influence. The fallen one doesn't just fear your life. He fears the lives connected to you. He knows if you awaken, you will awaken others. If you heal, you will lead others to healing. If you rise, you will inspire others to rise. You are a domino, and if you fall, countless others never move. But if you stand, everything shifts. That's why you've carried so much resistance. That's why your victories have been so costly. That's why your peace has been so rare. Because your breakthrough is not just yours, it's generational. And the fallen one has been desperately trying to block what you carry. But here's what he never accounted for: resilience. The divine resilience woven into your very being. He thought pain would destroy you, but instead it deepened you. He thought rejection would silence you, but instead it made you more discerning. He thought delays would discourage you, but instead they refined your patience. Every weapon he used to stop you has become the very tools shaping you into who you must become. And now, he's running out of time. You're beginning to see the truth. You're beginning to realize that your pain was never punishment. It was preparation. You're beginning to understand that the very battles you thought disqualified you are the evidence that you were chosen all along. Let me make this plain. If the fallen one wasn't afraid of you, you wouldn't be under this much pressure. If you weren't carrying something greater, your life wouldn't have been marked with so many storms. Ordinary lives don't attract extraordinary attacks. and that alone should tell you everything you need to know. But here's where the danger rises. Once you realize you're chosen, the monitoring intensifies. The fallen one cannot allow a chosen one to wake up fully. He will send new distractions, new temptations, even counterfeit opportunities that look like blessings but are designed to drain you. Because if he can't destroy you outright, he'll try to delay you until you give up on yourself. And that's the next battlefield, time. He wants you to believe you're too late. That you've wasted too much. That the mistakes, the failures, the delays have disqualified you. But don't you see? That's another lie. He knows the power you carry doesn't expire. He knows your destiny is not bound to the clock. So he tries to bind you with regret, hoping you'll stop before you start. But listen, you are not too late. You are right on time. Everything you've been through has been shaping you for this moment. Even the monitoring, the attacks, the betrayals, they've all been training you to see, to discern, to endure. You are more prepared than you realize. Now let me ask you, what happens when a chosen one stops running? What happens when they finally embrace who they are, regardless of fear, regardless of pain, regardless of who doubts them? That's when the fallen one loses his grip. That's when the monitoring becomes powerless. Because the moment you know who you are, you become uncontrollable. And that's the step you're standing on right now. You're not just listening to this, your spirit is resonating with it. Because deep down, you've always known you were different. You've always felt the weight of something greater, even when you couldn't name it. That was your calling whispering to you. That was destiny reminding you that you are not ordinary. But destiny does not manifest by accident. You must decide. You must step into the fire willingly, knowing it cannot consume you, only refine you. You must embrace the truth that your pain has been the price of your purpose. And once you do, the fallen one loses the ability to control you through fear. So let me leave you with this. You were targeted because you were chosen. You were monitored because you were marked. And though the fallen one tried to use that against you, what he didn't realize is that every moment of surveillance only confirmed your significance. And in the next part, I'll show you what happens when a chosen one finally flips the script, when instead of being monitored, you become the watcher, the one who sees through the darkness, the one who turns the tables on the very system built to destroy you. The fallen one thought he was clever. He thought that by monitoring you, by tracking your every move, he could control the outcome of your life. But here's what he never expected, that one day, you would learn to see him. That one day, the hunted would become the hunter. That the one under surveillance would awaken and flip the script. Right now, you are standing on that shift. For so long, you've been reacting. Reacting to pain, reacting to betrayal, reacting to disappointment. But the moment you begin to see the patterns, the moment you recognize the fingerprints of the enemy, you stop reacting and start anticipating. That is the turning point. That is when you stop being the observed and become the observer. Have you noticed how much changes when you finally recognize a cycle? At first, it feels like endless confusion. The same heartbreak, the same financial struggle, the same loneliness repeating over and over. You keep asking, why does this always happen to me? But when your eyes open, when you start to see the design, you realize it's not random, it's a loop. A script designed to keep you stuck. And once you see the loop, you can break it. This is why awareness is so dangerous to the fallen one. His system relies on you being blind, living on autopilot, reacting instead of discerning. But the moment you rise as a watcher, the whole game changes. Suddenly, the temptation that once trapped you becomes obvious. The betrayal that once shattered you becomes predictable. You start seeing not just what happens, but why it happens. And when you see the why, you take back control. But let me take this deeper. Becoming a watcher doesn't just mean seeing patterns in your own life. It means seeing through the illusions of the world itself. The fallen one has built an entire society on distraction. Endless noise, endless division, endless false lights to keep people blind. But when you awaken, you begin to see through it. You start noticing the manipulation in the media, the emptiness in the promises, the counterfeit freedom that is really bondage. You see how systems are designed not to free you, but to chain you. And here's where it gets powerful. The more you see, the harder it is to unsee. Once you recognize the hand of the fallen one in your struggles, you begin to recognize it in the world around you. That's when you realize your fight isn't just personal, it's universal. You were chosen not just to escape, but to expose. To shine light in places others can't even recognize as dark. Now imagine this: the very one who was once monitored now watches back. You see the traps before they're laid. You notice the lies before they take root. You discern the energy of people before their words can fool you. This is what terrifies the fallen one, a chosen one who no longer stumbles blindly, but walks with vision. And let me warn you, once you begin to see, you'll notice how uncomfortable it makes others. Because most people don't want to wake up. They prefer the comfort of illusions over the weight of truth. When you start speaking what you see, they may call you strange, paranoid, even crazy. But understand this: their reaction is not about you. It's about the chains they're unwilling to break. You see what they refuse to acknowledge, and that alone unsettles them. But don't let that silence you. Remember, the fallen one uses people's opinions as another tool of control. He knows how much humans crave acceptance, so he weaponizes rejection. He wants you to shrink, to hide, to question your clarity. But if you dare to stand in your vision, you'll realize something incredible: that the rejection of others is often the confirmation of your alignment. And now comes the shift: when you step into the role of watcher, you no longer waste energy on battles that don't matter. You stop being distracted by every noise. You stop chasing validation. You stop trying to force doors that were never meant for you. Because you can see clearly now. And clarity is freedom. Let me ask you, how different would your life look if you stopped reacting and started anticipating? If you stopped falling for the same traps and started dismantling them before they could even touch you? That's the power of awakening. That's the moment when the fallen one realizes he's losing his grip. But here's the key: watching alone is not enough. Seeing patterns is powerful, but if you don't act on what you see, the monitoring still wins. That's why the next stage of your awakening is movement. You must begin to shift your behavior, your mindset, your decisions. If you know the cycle, break it. If you see the trap, walk around it. If you recognize the counterfeit, wait for the real. Awareness without action is still a form of bondage. And this is where courage comes in. Because acting on what you see often means walking alone. It means stepping away from circles that no longer align. It means rejecting opportunities that look good but feel wrong. It means listening to your spirit even when logic screams otherwise. And that's hard, but it's also the very thing that sets you free. The fallen one cannot handle a chosen one who acts with clarity. He can fight you in ignorance. He can fight you in doubt. But when you stand in both awareness and action, you are no longer just a target, you are a threat. You start disrupting his plans, not just for yourself, but for everyone connected to you. And that's the next level. Your awakening isn't just about you. Remember what I told you, your influence reaches beyond yourself. When you rise as a watcher, you give permission for others to rise too. You break cycles not just for yourself, but for generations. The very chains that tried to strangle your family line snap under your feet. The very curses that haunted your bloodline lose their power through you. That's what being chosen really means. You are a turning point in history. The fallen one knows this. That's why his monitoring has been relentless. That's why the attacks on your life have been generational. He has studied your family, your lineage, your weaknesses. He thought he could stop the line through you. But what he didn't expect was that you would awaken, that you would choose differently, that you would decide to become the breaker of chains instead of the bearer of them. And here's the truth: once you awaken, you begin to reverse the monitoring. You begin to see not only him, but the divine fingerprints over your life. You start noticing the moments where protection was hidden in the pain. You start realizing that even in the darkest nights, you were never abandoned. You see that while the fallen one monitored, a greater watcher was always watching too. And that changes everything. So here's where we go next. Now that you've stepped into the role of watcher, it's time to understand the higher strategy. How to not just see the traps but dismantle them. How to not just resist the lies but replace them. and how to turn the very monitoring system meant to destroy you into fuel for your rise. Because once you do, the fallen one's greatest weapon, surveillance, becomes his greatest failure. The moment you begin to dismantle the traps, everything changes. You're no longer just surviving the blows, you're breaking the system itself. The fallen one's monitoring becomes useless when you stop walking blindly into the snares he sets for you. And that's what I'm about to show you now, how the very tricks that worked against you for years can be unraveled one by one until they no longer hold power over you. The first trap is distraction. He knows if he can't destroy you, he can distract you. Endless noise. Endless scrolling. Endless cycles of busyness that lead nowhere. Distraction doesn't look dangerous because it feels harmless, even entertaining. But pay attention, distraction is a thief dressed in ordinary clothes. It steals your focus, your energy, your clarity. And when you are distracted, you cannot see. That's why the monitoring works so well. If your attention is scattered, you'll never notice the patterns. So how do you dismantle it? By becoming intentional with your attention. Ask yourself, does this strengthen me or drain me? Does this align with where I'm going or pull me further away? Most people live distracted because they never ask those questions. But once you do, you'll begin to cut cords. Suddenly, that endless scrolling feels like poison. That pointless conversation feels like a trap. That old habit that numbs your mind becomes unacceptable. And just like that, distraction loses its hold. The second trap is offense. The fallen one studies your wounds and then uses people to poke them over and over. He knows how to make someone's words feel like knives, how to turn misunderstandings into explosions, how to plant betrayal right when you're starting to trust. And if you take the bait, if you let offense grow into bitterness, the trap tightens around your spirit. But here's the key, offense is a choice. You cannot control what others do, but you can control how long you bleed from it. To dismantle this trap, you must master the art of release. Not for them, but for you. Because the longer you hold on, the more the monitoring succeeds. The moment you release, you cut the cord. The moment you forgive, you disarm the trap. That doesn't mean you allow toxic people back in your life. It means you refuse to let their poison live in your veins any longer. The third trap is counterfeit alignment. The fallen one is a master of imitation. He sends counterfeit people, counterfeit opportunities, counterfeit blessings, all designed to look like the real thing but to drain you from the inside out. How many times have you said yes to something that looked right, only to feel emptier once you took it? That was a counterfeit. Here's how you dismantle it. Learn the difference between appearance and atmosphere. Something may look good on the surface, but how does it feel in your spirit? The real aligns with your peace. The counterfeit steals it. The real may challenge you, but it will never confuse you. The counterfeit always comes with chaos, drama, and exhaustion. Once you train yourself to check the atmosphere, you'll stop falling for appearances. The fourth trap is isolation twisted into despair. The fallen one knows you are most dangerous when you are connected to the right people, so he tries to cut you off. He twists solitude into loneliness, making you believe you are forgotten. But here's the hidden truth. Isolation can be sacred when you see it rightly. Sometimes it's not rejection, it's redirection. Sometimes you've been pulled away from the noise so you can see clearly. To dismantle this trap, you must redefine your seasons. Stop labeling every quiet season as abandonment. Ask yourself, is this loneliness, or is this preparation? Is this isolation, or is this alignment? When you reframe it, despair loses its grip. You begin to see that even in silence, something is being built inside you. The fifth trap is fear. Fear is the loudest weapon of the fallen one. He doesn't need to chain your body if he can chain your mind. Fear of failure. Fear of rejection. Fear of the unknown. Fear that paralyzes you so completely you never take the step forward. And here's how he monitors. He watches what you hesitate on, then magnifies the fear around it. If you fear starting, he amplifies the risk. If you fear speaking, he makes the silence louder. He watches and feeds your hesitation until you're frozen. But fear, at its core, is a liar. It paints shadows larger than they are. It whispers outcomes that rarely come true. To dismantle fear, you must confront it head on. Do the thing afraid. Step into the unknown trembling. Speak while your voice shakes. Because every time you act in spite of fear, its power shrinks. The fallen one cannot hold someone who moves forward regardless of trembling. Now here's the deeper layer. When you dismantle these traps, the monitoring system begins to glitch. The fallen one relies on predictable reactions. If he knows distraction works, he'll keep using it. If he knows offense breaks you, he'll keep stirring it. If he knows fear paralyzes you, he'll keep amplifying it. But the moment you break the pattern, he loses his grip. He can monitor all he wants, but he cannot control what no longer reacts. And let me tell you, this is when the shift becomes undeniable. Suddenly, the things that once drained you feel powerless. The betrayals that once shattered you feel like dust. The temptations that once hooked you feel like nothing. And when that happens, the fallen one panics. Because the whole foundation of his system is your agreement. The moment you stop agreeing, the chains fall. But don't think he'll surrender easily. No, when you start dismantling traps, he gets desperate. He throws everything at you: sudden storms, unexpected losses, emotional ambushes. Why? Because he wants to scare you back into old cycles. He wants to see if you'll panic and return to the familiar prison. That's why the battle always gets fiercest right before the breakthrough. And here's where you must stand calm in the storm. The fallen one thrives on your reaction. But when you stop giving him the satisfaction of panic, when you remain steady, when you refuse to return to chains, his monitoring becomes meaningless. He can watch, but he cannot win. Now let me ask you, what would your life look like if every trap lost its power? If distraction no longer pulled you, if offense no longer bound you, if counterfeits no longer fooled you, if fear no longer froze you? That's the version of you the fallen one fears most. That's the version of you that dismantles his empire piece by piece. And that's where you're heading. You are not just breaking free, you are becoming a breaker. You are not just dismantling traps for yourself, you are creating a path for others to follow. The very things that once held you are now tools in your hands. The enemy's strategies become your map to freedom. And that is when you rise beyond his reach. But this leads to the next revelation: dismantling the traps is only step one. The greater step is stepping into your authority, into the power that has been waiting within you all along. And in the next part, I'm going to reveal what happens when a chosen one doesn't just resist the fallen one but begins to walk in the authority that makes the darkness tremble. Authority. That's the word the fallen one fears most. Not power, because he has power, twisted and corrupt as it may be. But authority? Authority is different. Authority doesn't just fight darkness, it overrides it. Authority is when you don't just resist the storm, you command it. Authority is when you don't just survive the fire, you walk through it untouched. Authority is the realization that you are no longer reacting to darkness, you are making darkness react to you. This is the moment where everything begins to shift. The fallen one has monitored you, tracked you, studied you, all to keep you locked in cycles of weakness. But when you awaken to authority, the roles reverse. Suddenly, he's the one nervous. He's the one reacting. He's the one scrambling, because you've moved from prey to threat. And this is not theory. Authority manifests in tangible ways. It shows up in your voice, in your choices, in the way you carry yourself. Have you ever noticed how some people can walk into a room and shift the atmosphere without saying a word? That's authority. It's not arrogance. It's not ego. It's alignment. It's the invisible force that comes from being rooted in something greater than fear, greater than manipulation, greater than shadows. The first layer of authority is over your mind. As long as the fallen one can infiltrate your thoughts, authority cannot manifest. But when you begin to guard your mind, when you filter every voice and silence the lies, you begin to reclaim the territory of your own headspace. Authority over your mind means you decide what stays and what goes. You become the gatekeeper, not the victim of every thought that knocks. The second layer is over your emotions. This doesn't mean you stop feeling, it means you stop being ruled by what you feel. Anger, sadness, fear, frustration, they may pass through, but they no longer dictate your actions. When the Fallen One monitors and sees that your emotions no longer drag you into chaos, he realizes his grip is slipping. Authority over your emotions turns storms into ripples. It makes you unpredictable, untouchable, steady in ways that terrify the darkness. The third layer is over your atmosphere. Authority radiates outward. When you speak, people listen differently. When you walk, people notice differently. When you choose, doors respond differently. Authority creates an unseen pressure that causes everything not aligned with your purpose to tremble. And this is where the Fallen One starts to lose sleep, because he knows that once you carry authority in your atmosphere, his counterfeit setups collapse on sight. But authority doesn't come from pretending to be strong. It comes from surrender. Let me shock you with this truth. Your authority increases in direct proportion to how much you surrender to the higher call on your life. It's not about how loud you can shout at darkness. It's about how aligned you are with the light. The more you walk in alignment, the less effort it takes to shift things. Authority is quiet, steady, undeniable. It doesn't need to prove itself, it simply is. Now, picture this. The Fallen One tries his old tricks. He sends distraction, but you see it instantly and dismiss it. He stirs offense, but you refuse the bait and keep your peace. He throws fear at you, but you walk straight through, trembling but unbroken. What happens next? The monitoring system begins to collapse. The enemy cannot track someone who no longer dances to his rhythm. Authority breaks predictability. And when you're unpredictable, you become uncontainable. But let's take this further. Authority isn't just about resisting darkness, it's about commanding light. When you step into authority, you start to unlock creative power. Ideas flow where there used to be confusion. Opportunities appear where there used to be dead ends. Relationships realign, doors open, timing shifts. It's as if reality itself begins to respond differently to you, because it does. Authority makes you magnetic to alignment and repellent to counterfeits. And here's where the warfare intensifies. The Fallen One will try to convince you that your authority is an illusion, that you're still weak, that you're still bound. He will throw reminders of your past, highlight your failures, replay your mistakes on the screen of your mind. Why? Because authority only works if you believe it. If he can keep you doubting, he can keep you small. That's why the real battleground isn't out there, it's in your perception. So here's the question you must face. Will you see yourself as chosen, or will you keep seeing yourself as broken? Will you carry yourself as someone rising, or someone surviving? Authority is birthed the moment you shift your identity. You're not just someone stumbling through life trying to escape the Fallen One's monitoring. You're someone who walks so deeply in alignment that the monitoring itself becomes meaningless. Now imagine the chain reaction. One chosen one walking in authority can shift entire families, communities, even nations. Why? Because authority is contagious. People feel it. They lean into it. They start to awaken to their own. And the Fallen One knows that if one rises, others will follow. That's why he works overtime to suppress you, because your rising isn't just about you. It's about the ripple effect that will break cycles across generations. And here's the truth you must not miss. Authority doesn't mean you will never face storms. It means the storms will no longer face you the same way. You may walk through shadows, but shadows will bend around you. You may enter battles, but battles will tremble because you stepped in. That is the level of authority rising inside you right now. So let me ask you, what would happen if you fully stepped into this? If you stopped doubting your place, stopped questioning your worth, stopped second-guessing your voice? What if you finally carried yourself as the authority you were born to be? That's the day the Fallen One's empire begins to crumble. That's the day monitoring turns into fear. That's the day the watcher realizes the one being watched has become the one to watch. But this leads to the final revelation. Authority is not just about dismantling traps or even commanding light. It's about destiny. It's about the unstoppable unfolding of the purpose you were designed for before the Fallen One ever began his schemes. And in the final part, I'm going to take you into that vision, the endgame, the moment where all of this converges into the destiny the monitoring was trying to prevent you from stepping into. Destiny. That's what this has all been about from the very beginning. The Fallen One never wasted his time monitoring you because you were ordinary. He monitored you because he saw what you were designed to become. He saw the blueprint written over your life, the ripple effect of your rising, the impact you were destined to make. That is why the traps were set. That is why the monitoring never stopped. He wasn't afraid of who you were, he was terrified of who you would become. And now here you stand, after cycles, after battles, after storms, closer to that destiny than ever before. Can you feel it? That pull inside you that says there is more? That quiet certainty that whispers you were never meant to settle, never meant to shrink, never meant to fade into the background? That is destiny calling. That is the reason for the fight. But destiny is not automatic. It doesn't arrive like a package dropped at your door. It requires alignment. It requires choice. It requires you to step fully into the authority we spoke of and walk in the fullness of who you are. Because destiny is not just about where you end up, it's about who you become along the way. Every trap you dismantled, every fear you faced, every betrayal you survived, every tear you shed, it all shaped you for this moment. Here's the truth: destiny doesn't feel comfortable. It feels weighty. It feels bigger than you. It stretches you beyond your comfort zones. That's why many resist it, because stepping into destiny means stepping into unknown waters. But what you don't realize is that those waters are where you've always belonged. You were never built for shallow places. You were built for the deep. And let me make this crystal clear: your destiny is not just personal. It is generational. The reason the Fallen One monitored you so intensely is because your rising will break chains that go back decades. Patterns that lived in your family line, cycles that swallowed those before you, curses that seemed unshakable, all of it begins to unravel because you chose to rise. You are the interruption to what has been, and the initiation of what will be. That is why you could never fit in. That is why you always felt different. You were born to be the turning point. Now pause and imagine this: your life fully in alignment. Your authority fully activated. Your destiny unfolding without restraint. What does that look like? You walking into rooms where doors fling open because they recognize who you are. You speaking words that cut through confusion and awaken clarity in others. You living with such intention that even your presence becomes a catalyst for change. That is not fantasy, that is the reality you are stepping into. And here's the paradox: the more you step into destiny, the less the Fallen One can touch you. Because destiny is not just a path, it's a shield. It's the momentum of purpose carrying you forward. Attacks may come, but they bounce off the covering of alignment. Monitoring may continue, but it becomes irrelevant. Because destiny doesn't ask permission. It doesn't wait for approval. It moves like fire, consuming every obstacle in its way. But you must choose it. Destiny requires boldness. It requires that moment where you stop waiting for everything to be safe and step anyway. You cannot tiptoe into it. You cannot half commit. You must leap. You must say, "I am ready, even if I feel unready. I am chosen, even if I feel broken. I am rising, even if I feel trembling." That declaration is the ignition switch. That's when destiny begins to roar. And understand this: the Fallen One will not stop trying. Even as you rise, he will whisper. He will send counterfeits dressed as blessings. He will try to stir doubt, fear, weariness. But by now you know the patterns. By now you've dismantled the traps. By now you carry authority. And so his whispers become background noise. His monitoring becomes powerless observation. He can watch, but he cannot alter what has already been set in motion. So let me turn the question back to you: what will you do with your destiny? Will you shrink back into old cycles, or will you rise into the unknown? Will you let the monitoring keep you paralyzed, or will you walk so boldly that even the shadows bow to your steps? Because the truth is, the only thing that can stop you now is hesitation. Destiny has already chosen you. The only choice left is whether you will choose it back. Picture it one last time: the chains shattered, the traps dismantled, the monitoring broken. You standing tall, steady, unshaken. You walking in purpose so clear that others around you begin to awaken just by being near you. You breaking cycles that were never meant to last. You becoming the very thing the fallen one feared from the start. That is your story. That is your destiny. And here's the final truth: destiny is not waiting for someday. It is waiting for right now. Every second you hesitate is a second the fallen one celebrates. But every step you take forward, no matter how small, sends ripples into eternity. You are not behind. You are not late. You are right on time. This is the moment. This is the awakening. This is the unveiling of who you truly are. So step boldly. Step fully. Step knowing that the monitoring has failed, that the fallen one's strategies have collapsed, that the very fact you're still standing means you've already won. Your destiny is unfolding, and nothing, no shadow, no trap, no lie, no monitoring system, can stop it now. And as you walk forward, remember this: you were never the one being hunted. You were always the one being feared. That's why the monitoring never stopped. That's why the opposition was so heavy. Because deep down, the fallen one knew the truth long before you did, that your destiny was unstoppable. And now so do you.